Welcome back to another episode of the Better Than I Found It podcast. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach here at Baylor University. My guest today is PGA Tour professional Rickie Fowler. Now, Rickie is not only a terrific golfer, he's a world-class person as well. He and I discuss his recruitment to Oklahoma State, mentors in his life, and the upcoming birth of his first child. Rickie has also had an important and dramatic impact on my coaching career. He's a player I'll never forget. His humble, nice guy image is not just an act. He's the real deal. I know you will enjoy this interview. My guest today is a guy I coached many years ago at Oklahoma State, a world-class golfer and just a world-class guy, Rickie Fowler. Rickie, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks. Finally got me on. Rainy day here in Jupiter, so it worked out perfect.
Well, I've been chasing you down. You're kind of hard to catch, but that's okay. But thank you for appearing today. This ought to be great. I know I've got a lot of questions I want to get to and some information about your career, but what I really want to talk about to begin with is something that's really exciting in your life, and that is you and Allison are expecting your first child. Tell me about that.
Life is seriously going to change here shortly. We've got a little girl on the way. Original due date is November 30th, but she's full term now, so it's kind of a day-to-day, maybe a few days at a time, kind of see where we're at, because it could really happen at any point with where we are now.
So do you think you're going to be a girl dad? That's going to be amazing. Are you going to get a golf club in her hands early, do you think?
I probably some sort of plastic club that she can swing around. There'll probably be something in hand before she can walk. So we'll see if that's something that she takes to. If she does, great. If not, we'll find something else.
Oh, I'm sure you and Allison will find something great for her. But so I'm really happy for you and congratulations. That's, I know, going to be a big life change, but also like an incredible life change.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. My sister had twin boys almost 3 years ago now. So to see them, that was a bit of a shock to the system when you get a 2-for-1 special. So we're happy to just start with one and go from there.
Yeah, I know you'll be great, Daddy. I'm sure of it. So let's do this. Let's go back a little bit in time, back to your recruitment. You were a Southern California boy, motocross guy, really good golfer. But, I'm sure at age 14, when you finally gave up motocross because of an injury, I'm sure you weren't thinking, well, I guess next stop, Oklahoma State. Here I come, Stillwater. You weren't thinking that at all, were you?
No, not necessarily. I was just trying to make the best decision for my golf game at that time. I knew my next step was playing well on the national level, and then ultimately, getting looked at by schools and having a chance to decide on where I wanted to go. I knew at that point that Oklahoma State was known as the powerhouse in college golf, if not talked about, amongst the 3, 4, or 5 big golf schools. And, I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave California, how close I wanted to stay at home, or just up and leave and go give golf 100% of my attention.
Well, I do remember this. Your sophomore year was the year I coached women's golf at Oklahoma State. So I was the head women's coach. And that summer between your sophomore year and junior year, I became the men's coach late in the summer. But I already knew about you because Alan Bratton had told me all about you. I think he'd seen you at the Western Junior when you won the Western Junior. And he showed me a picture of you and a video of your golf swing and the interesting spelling of Rickie, Rickie, which was different. So I kind of knew who you were already, but I became the coach overnight. And Alan came into my office and said, Coach, have you got your plane reservations to go out to California yet? And I said, what do you mean? He said, you got to go out and see Rickie Fowler for yourself. And so I think you remember when I took that first visit out there and kind of met everybody in your life. You remember that week pretty well?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we were kind of limited to the amount of time that we could actually spend together, but you made your rounds, did your homework, checked in with everyone, got the full background check on me. So I'm glad I was able to at least pass that. Because yeah, like you mentioned, you kind of fell into the spot overnight. I had seen Coach Holder out a little bit when I was able to start getting recruited. Um, Saw Bratton a couple times, but that was pretty early on in my recruiting process. So that's when you took over the reins and ran with it from there.
I remember the visit to the Murrieta Valley Golf Range, which was interesting because they had a gang they called the Over 70 gang. There were about 5 guys that worked there that were all in their 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And all they could talk about was Rickie this, Rickie that, everything. It was nonstop. But they didn't talk about your golf. They were talking about you as a person, which I thought was very telling to me. So they love the way you handle yourself. You remember all that experience. I mean, that must have been a great experience to grow up on a driving range.
Yeah, it was awesome. I would get dropped off there after school or get dropped off on the weekends and go hang through the day. And yeah, for the most part, the standard range crew were not necessarily kids just running around. It was, local retired older guys hanging around the range, and then as well as Lisa, she was like the token lady of the crew that kind of kept everything in check, but that was my second home or my home away from home, and I spent a lot of time around those people. They used to have putting tournaments and chipping tournaments, and that was where I always wanted to be. And we're actually in the process right now of kind of buying Bill out of the range. He's been wanting to kind of step aside and move on to kind of retirement. So we're going to ultimately take over the range and keep it alive. So it was a special place for me. Like I said, I spent a lot of time there. You got to see the crew that I would say for the most part, most of them are still around and hanging at the range. We've lost a couple there, being that they were no young spring chickens, but some good people. But yeah, we're like I said, in the process of taking that over, and just to keep it the way it's always been. I don't want it to change. I want that to be a place where the next Rickie can show up and hang out.
I love that. I remember getting there. I was going to meet your instructor, Barry McDonald, who was just a great guy. He was cut out of the old school, just like my dad, and he loved Ben Hogan. In fact, on this Zoom call that you and I are having right now, I'm looking at some drawings in the background that he did of Ben Hogan, which are just stunning. They're amazing. And you've got a picture of Barry back there. Tell me how special Barry was as far as being an influence in your golf. I know you didn't see him for a golf lesson every day. It wasn't like that at all, but I know he had a big impact.
Yeah, I mean, both on and off the golf course. Other outside of my immediate family and my grandpa who introduced me into golf, Barry and Bill, who ran the driving range, were some of the most instrumental people in my life, just because of the amount of time I spent around them, life lessons I learned from them, from anything from how you handle yourself on the golf course, how you handle yourself around other people. They're just, Barry was a special person. Like you said, he was a big Hogan guy, carried, Hogan's little book around at all times, kind of referencing and showing me little things as a kid. I mean, it was, a little easier to see some of the drawings in there to kind of, for him to, show what he was talking about. But we spent a lot of time together, typically a lesson once a week, sometimes twice a week. And he was just a, old school golf pro who loved to teach and help people. Never charged much for lessons. And I don't think we necessarily, he didn't exactly have my parents pay for every lesson on the spot or anything like that. It was just, he wanted to help whoever it was. And he kind of took me under his wing, and yeah, big part of why I am where I am today. And like I said, being kind of the old school guy, just, you know, learning golf in a natural way, not trying to, you know, sit there on video camera and look perfect. Go hit the ball and figure it out from there.
Two of the things that I noticed about him: one, he let you be yourself, so he didn't try to force you into another box, if you will. But when I was talking to him on the phone prior to that visit, um, I knew I wanted to talk to him and spend some time with him because I thought he must be a pretty special instructor. But I told him, I said, Barry, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I've always wanted to meet the best instructor in the United States. And there was silence on the other end of the line, like he was saying, you patronizing me. That's ridiculous. And he said, how would you know if I'm a great instructor? You've never seen me give a golf lesson. I said, well, I do know this. You're teaching the best junior golfer on the planet, and I didn't know your name until this week. So it's like, this is about Rickie, not about you. Would you agree he always put kind of you were the show and he was not?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you could see it in multiple situations. He thought about himself last. That might be something that I wish he would have thought about himself a little bit more. He struggled with some skin cancer and ultimately ended up passing away with complications due to that. But he was very much about taking care of people around him, and whether it was, on the golf side, how can I make someone better? Just any way he could help people. So stubborn in a good way, but I do wish he would have, looked after himself a little bit better in that regard. But definitely a special person, and that's something, seeing how he treated other people and how he loved to just help people. That's partly, how my family is as well, but something that has been passed down through my family as well as through Barry.
Yeah, Barry was a great man. He actually stayed at my house when you were in college. He came out and visited. Lisa did, and the whole gang basically came out, and it was great to see him there. But back when I go back to your recruiting situation, the two things strike me. One, you committed in the most unusual way as far as commitments to a coach. And I want you to tell the listeners that. But also, I want to talk about the night I spent a night in your driveway, which is kind of unusual for recruiting as well. But go ahead, tell me how you commit. Well, I'll go to the driveway first.
You don't want to make it sound too bad. I mean, we didn't just pitch a tent for you in the driveway, but
no, it was great. I was doing a home visit after the U.S. Junior, and your parents had invited the whole neighborhood over. It was a lot of your motorcycle friends, your dad's motorcycle buddies too. Just a bunch of people I wouldn't have met otherwise. Great people. And it was about 11:30 at night, and your mom came out, and you and I were the last two there, sitting by the pool, just talking. And she said, Coach McGraw, have you got a place to stay tonight? And I go, I think that was a polite way of saying it's time to go home. And I said, well, yeah, I guess I'll just go down to the Pechanga Resort. I think it's the closest place. And she said, nope, you're staying in the driveway. Tell the listeners what that was.
Well, luckily we had a motorhome. We did a lot of camping trips where we'd take the motorhome, or if we had a trailer at that time, take the bikes out to the desert and go camp. So it was you could definitely find worse accommodations. It was probably a solid 2.5, maybe 3-star.
It was great.
You made it through the night.
I did, and there was breakfast in there in the morning for me, and you and I met, and I thought you'd commit that morning, but you didn't. And I got on the plane and came back to Stillwater. But so a month or so later, you're playing in the US AM, and I'm sitting there in Stillwater. Alan, my assistant, is playing in the US AM. He got beat out and was watching you play. So how did you commit to me that week?
Yeah, I thought about it. And it's crazy to look back on it and see what commitments and signings look like nowadays. It's like that it's almost like gender reveal parties. Like you have,
Right.
Everything there, whether it's hats or signing, and it's a little bit of a show, but made the cut in USAM and showed up for match play and threw an Oklahoma State head cover on the driver and sent you a picture. Kept it fairly simple and to the point.
It was simple to the point, but it's the first photo I'd ever gotten on my BlackBerry, and I couldn't open it up. So I went into the golf shop and had somebody open it up for me. And I said, what does this mean? I said, I don't know. I think he likes OSU.
Yeah, I think, you had to call and confirm shortly after.
I called you after that round to confirm. And anyway, I'm glad you gave me that commitment. And you got to Oklahoma State, and you played 2 years. You were first team All-American both years. You won the Ben Hogan Award for the College Player of the Year your freshman year, and I think you finished fourth and fifth in the NCAA championship. A couple of top 5 finishes for sure. You and I both have only one small regret from that time together. You know what that is?
Not holding the trophy at the end of the year.
We didn't win an NCAA championship. I felt like we should. I felt like we had the team to do it, and we just didn't get it done. But I still felt like it was an amazing career that you had. And when you left, what did you tell me right before you left to go? Well, you weren't turning pro right away, but you were leaving and you were going to go to the Walker Cup. But you told me you were going to do something every week. What was that?
I'm assuming it was on the wearing orange.
That was it.
Well, I would say, unfortunately, it's not every week, but anytime there was no cut or I made the cut, then the orange was guaranteed for Sunday. But the Sunday orange, being the 2 years that we spent at Oklahoma State, obviously loved it. You were there a few more years than me, but special place, special golf school, and huge part of the development and a big stepping stone to go from playing junior and amateur and high school golf to being in a position to go play professionally and succeed at it.
Well, tell me about that transition, because I was with you at Marion for the Walker Cup, you and Peter and Morgan. And by the way, not many people realize this, but the three of you outscored Great Britain and Ireland. You had 10.5 points. They had 9.5. Just the three of you.
The three of us, we played quite nice there at Marion. It was pretty interesting to look. I mean, really, the Walker Cup bookended my college career. My first event of my college, or being at school, I had to go, and I went and played the Walker Cup. And so going to play there, I was a captain's pick, myself and Kyle Stanley, part of, with 8 other guys, arguably one of the best Walker Cup teams put together. We were just excited to be picked and be able to be there. So I went from kind of the young guy, captain's pick, felt like I needed to go play and show that I deserved a spot there, which I feel like I ultimately did in the end. I got off to a little bit of a rough start, but turned things around. And then to go to the complete flip side in 2009 at the end of the summer, after I'd decided to stay amateur for the summer, but ultimately turn pro after the Walker Cup. Showing up at the 2009 Walker Cup, just 2 years apart, I think myself and Brian Harmon were the only ones on the team that had played a Walker Cup before. So I went from newcomer, rookie, young kid to kind of you would say the only one with some Walker Cup experience, or almost veteran in the amateur space in 2 years. So things happened really quickly, but to feel the difference from 7 to 9 for me was, it was huge. I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the same player. To go from someone who was looking up to guys to now a guy who had somewhat of a leadership role on a team, guys that were still older or younger than me. But it seemed like, hey, between myself and Brian and a couple others that were there, it was kind of our job to lead or at least we had been there before. So I felt very comfortable in that situation, versus 07. I might've been the most nervous I've ever been on a golf course.
Yeah, but 07, you played one of your favorite golf courses ever, Royal County Down. You just really fell in love with that place.
I did. I would say I love the look of it. I fell in love with it after a few days, because the first few days, I don't know if I hit a golf shot on the map. So it got better with time.
What about transition? Because you literally, I think you flew from Marion after the Walker Cup straight out to play a Corn Ferry event on the West Coast. I think I remember that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I would have turned pro shortly after that. And then my first start as a pro was in Boise. So now Corn Ferry, at the time it was nationwide. I had to wait until the fall series for the PGA Tour to get started. So to be able to play a couple of events before then, Boise, which I believe was Albertson Boise Open at the time, and then one closer to home, which was Saboba. I played those two events before my first PGA Tour start.
And you were a pretty fast starter, a quick learner, because you almost got your tour card that fall in just a limited number of events. Tell me about being in Mississippi, and you had, I think you just need to basically make the cut and you would have your PGA Tour card. Is that correct?
It would have been close. So played the two now Corn Ferry events. Those were just to really get starts and play. My first start was in Vegas at the Shriners. I ended up top 10ing, so it was a great finish, which I did have a spot into the next week, which was Fry's at Greyhawk. But with the top 10, that got me automatically in, so the tournament got their sponsor exemption back. I'd say Jason Gore was a happy camper. He was the one that got the spot. So go to Fry's, playing well, in contention, have a chance to win, end up in a playoff. It's myself, Jamie Lovemark, and Troy Madison. The second playoff hole, Troy hits it to gimme. Jamie and I finished second, and we've been okay since. It would have made things a little easier if one of us would have won that for security purposes moving forward. But show up in Mississippi the following week after top 10, just thinking we're going to, kind of keep the ball rolling. Got Mississippi, and then Disney would be the final event of the year. I think I needed to make maybe it might have been close to another 100,000. So with two events, you think, okay, either one really good finish or two solid finishes. And Mississippi gets rained out. So we hung there for a couple of days, tried to walk 9 holes. I mean, the place was underwater. Rain wouldn't let up. So with losing one of the final two events, that was, kind of a step backwards. Went to Disney, knew what we needed to do, ultimately came up a little bit short, and then off to 6 rounds of Q school. Luckily that went the right way.
It went very well, and you never look back. Your rookie year on the PGA Tour, you were rookie of the year on the PGA Tour, so that's pretty significant. You had some great things happen that year. I think you were second a couple of times at least. Mm-hmm. So you did some great things. But let's talk about early on in that process. You had a mentor, a pretty famous golfer who was a mentor, West Coast guy, Phil Mickelson, kind of sort of took you under his wing pretty early, and I think that had to have been helpful. Tell me about Phil's influence on your golf early on.
Yeah, no, Phil's great. From the first couple of years, spent a little bit of time with him, but I would say definitely more so once it got to like 2011, 2012, 2010 was my first year on tour, but we played a lot of games, or like Tuesday games, myself, him, there'd be like DJ, Duffner, and whoever really wanted to be in on Tuesday games. So things would rotate around, but spent a lot of time with him those few years. And then I started working with Butch, and Phil was with Butch as well. So there was a, 5-6 year period where I spent a lot of time around Phil, mainly at tournaments, being that I lived in Florida. He was, still out in California, but someone that I learned a lot from. Time management, life on the course, life away from the course, fan involvement. How I think he's done a great job with how he, spends time with fans, or when he has to say no, he does it the right way. I feel like for the most part, he's always been a fan favorite. You're always going to have people that are haters. So if you don't have any, then you're doing something wrong. But that's just part of the game.
Well, I know that it's great that guys in golf in particular always love giving back, and you're one of those people, I know. Your mom, Lynn, as I recall, Alan Bratton and I discovered very early, we think Rod was an Oklahoma State fan early, but we had to kind of feel like, are we going to win over Lynn? Are we going to be there? And I think we did. But your mom had such an amazing influence on, I think, the way you are today. I remember a quote: "My mom always got me to school and to the driving range while Dad was working. She also kept me quiet and humble. They both taught me to let my golf clubs do the talking." So I think I remember that. You were one of the most calm little superstar junior golfers I'd ever seen, but it was fun watching you play. Tell me about your mom's influence on who you are today as a professional golfer.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, both my parents and then my grandparents as well had a big influence, but my mom was kind of she was the enforcer. I think a lot of it came from her parents, my grandparents. My grandpa was the one that introduced me to golf, but he's full Japanese, and then my grandma is full Navajo Indian. So with both those cultures, being Native American, and then having kind of the Asian culture, which is especially the Japanese culture, is very respectful, for the most part, fairly like humble and quiet, and so I think taking what she learned from her parents and passing that down, that was a big part of kind of who I am on both on and off the golf course. But for the most part, I don't like to show what's going on a whole lot. Yeah, I may be a little upset or dealing with it internally, but I'm not going to show it by necessarily throwing a club or doing anything like that. My mom always told me that if I happened to break a club, she was going to take it. So as in golf, you can only have 14 clubs. I didn't want to lose the capability of having all 14.
Well, somebody at Oklahoma State, when I was coaching you, said he's one of the nicest boys I've met that you've ever coached. And I said, well, his mother would have no other way. She wasn't putting up with any boy that was impolite, was doing things the wrong way. And when I've seen you compete, even when I know the pressure's on and you've done something great, you keep yourself really under control very, very well. And I think that's got to be intentional, to keep yourself on an even keel. But you're still fun to watch. I always loved watching you play.
Yeah, I mean, you can still have things that are going on, like I said, inside, whether it's upset or super excited, but the more that those can kind of maintain closer to level or even keel, the better. You don't want to get too down or too excited. And there's plenty of guys that deal with it differently. And you see guys that may get, upset or excited, but they also are very good at snapping back to, being back to level pretty quickly. Cause you can't ride those lows or highs too long.
Yeah. So your mom has been influenced. Barry McDonald's been influenced. Your grandparents, Phil Mickelson. There's one other guy in the last 5 or 6 years that's had a big influence on your career, and that'd be Tiger Woods. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me something you might have learned from Tiger, or something that he's helped you with that's made you a better player, a better person?
I mean, I've just enjoyed the friendship and getting to spend the amount of time that I've gotten to spend with him over the last, 5, 6 years, myself and JT included. JT probably spends more time with him than I do, but I think one of the biggest things, he's, arguably the greatest player that's ever played our game, but to see things put in perspective, see what family and his kids mean to him. I know he's dealt with a lot of adversity, coming back from back stuff, and then to be back winning, and then now coming back from the car accident, to see kind of where priorities are and what you're really living for. Ultimately at the end of the day, it's family and the people around you. Now golf is still a driving force and a huge part of his life, but his kids are the biggest thing in his life. And I know there were times where it was, he was wondering if, be able to move much again with the back, and then, a new whole process of stuff going on with the leg and foot with his car crash. But ultimately he wants to be able to be there for his kids and to grow up with them, not watch them grow up. So I think that's been a big part of understanding, life. Yes, golf is special. And if we get to play it, great, make the most of it, work hard at, being able to go out there and play well. But, your family and the people around you are really what is most important.
That's really great to hear. And it's been obvious watching Tiger over the last few years as priorities have changed and families become even more and more important. Been fun to watch. And he still won a Masters during that time too. So he's had plenty of great golf. But so he's been a mentor, Phil's been a mentor, but I know you've been a mentor for some young players. So let's talk about maybe some of these young players that have come out in the last 3 or 4 years that you've had an impact on, like Victor Hovland or Matthew Wolff or even Taylor Gooch or some of the other players. Tell me something about that, being a mentor.
Yeah, I've tried to be there or help any way that I can. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily going out and forcing it on them. Throw it out there. Hey, you need anything, let me know. I'm here. Especially all the guys with Oklahoma State, for the most part, I'm going to know or have at least a pretty good friendship with them prior to them turning pro. There's in the last, I guess it's been 13 years on tour. There's only been 2 years where I haven't been able to make it back. And those weren't consecutive. So anyone that's played there, I've met and spent time with. So that's a big part of, with the pro-am that we have at Oklahoma State, being able to raise the funds that we do for the golf team, gets tour players back, but also you're getting to meet. It's like a family reunion, but you're getting to meet the newcomers, the kids that are playing on the team. And for me, that's been a great way to continue relationships and build new ones. And then, like I said, when guys decide to turn pro or out there playing, I'm either there or I'm a text or a phone call away. I guess I didn't do a good enough job with Wolff. He moved to Florida and then he moved back to Oklahoma. So he's still young. He may end up back down this way, but I get to see him a lot on the road, and I know he's had his ups and downs, but he's been a lot of fun to watch. Another California kid, Victor. He's another one. He's still living in Oklahoma. He's in Stillwater. Matt's in Edmond, but they've both had some tremendous success. They've both been fun to watch.
Well, and that sort of gentle mentorship, it's not like you're forcing it on them, as you talked about, but I think it's important for you, from everything I've read and just having known you and stayed in touch with you all these years, that a lasting impact is important and your legacy is important and how you treat people is very important. I know you learned that from your parents, but I have a quote here that I got out from someplace. I'm not sure where I got it. You said, "I'd love to have a lasting impact as far as growing the game. It'd be cool to be remembered as a major champion. I'd like to be remembered as a great golfer, but also a great person as far as growing the game and charity work, the whole well-rounded athlete." Is that something you just say to a reporter and they put it in print, or is that something that really, seriously, is that something that you really think about?
Yeah, it is. Winning tournaments, winning majors. Yes, I'd still love to win a major or multiple and put myself in that position to do so. And yes, you're remembered off your wins, not necessarily your seconds or anything from there, but also the impact you have on people's lives or the game. That's more what I'm focused on, is having a positive impact kind of across the board. But that some of that is helped by winning more. So it's kind of, they go hand in hand. So the better I play, the more I win, the more of an impact I can have. But ultimately being able to leave this game and this world a better place when I'm all said and done, that's the ultimate goal.
That's excellent. And, for being a high profile world-class athlete, as you've been for over 10 years, you've had almost no controversies in your career. That's incredible. Now, it's not like you're tiptoeing around trying to avoid them, but you just are doing the right things. I think people probably underplay how squeaky clean your career has been. It's been amazing. and you're considered one of the nicest guys on tour, whether it's from the media or fans or players themselves. So how do you come up with that? I mean, how have you been such a solid, stable individual and have such a good reputation like that?
Well, I'll just knock on wood and make sure that nothing crazy comes out or anything like that. Not that I'm not hiding any demons in the closet or anything. I think a big part comes from the people that I grew up around, from my parents to Barry, Bill, my grandparents. Both my parents are huge in this position, but always looking at the glass half full, and then just treat other people how you want to be treated. I mean, this world would be a significantly different place if those two things were kind of the basic factors or starting points. But some people find those ones a bit tough.
They do, and that's probably a lot of the problems we have are related to that. But so Rickie Fowler, the nice guy, Rickie Fowler, the no controversy, great influence, mentor, great media guy. I mean, a lot of really good things can be said. But I'm going to ask you a question. So one of the things that has always bothered me is the way people look at your success, the relative success you've had as a golfer. And obviously, I'm closer to this than most because I actually coached you and recruited you and all of that. But if I'm a rookie on the PGA Tour and I'm getting ready to play my first tournament, and there's two buttons I can push, and one button is start playing right now, and I just start playing tournaments. And the other button is that I'm going to fast forward 11 years, and the following record will be mine. And that is 5 PGA Tour victories, 8 worldwide victories, 74 top 10s, $40 million in prize money, 12 top 10s in majors, 3 President's Cups, 4 Ryder Cups, played on the World Cup team, played in the Olympics. So which button are you going to push as a rookie? You, Rickie Fowler, as a rookie. Which are you going to push the button to play right away, or are you going to push the one that creates that record?
It'd be a loaded question because, one, I would say you have high expectations for yourself, but when you sit back and if you're realistic, honestly, I've had a great career. Do I want more, and would I want more? Yes. Everyone's going to want more. If you don't want more, then there's something wrong. But when you look at, the course of that, how hard it is to win on tour, to be able to be on that many Ryder Cup, President's Cup teams, have those experiences, it's special. I'd say as a kid and junior golfer and then to college, the dream or the goal was, want to make it on the PGA Tour, and I want to win on tour. You look at like majors or multiple wins and stuff, that becomes bonus material. So for me, as a kid growing up at a local driving range back home, it was being on tour, win on tour, have the chances to win majors. Those ones aren't just handed out, and we've given ourselves chances. We've been close. We still got plenty of time, but yeah, as a rookie, you'd have to say, everything's stacked against you if you want to try and go play and better those statistics. Obviously, it's doable. There's plenty of good young players coming out, but it ain't easy out on tour. Those wins don't just happen. They don't come easily. There's been a few guys that make it look easy. Tiger kind of skewed things for people when he got to a point where he was winning roughly 30% of the tournaments he played. That doesn't happen. Even getting anywhere close to double-digit percentage. So even winning, 5%, 1 in 20 of events you play is a hell of a percentage. So, my career hasn't been all that bad. And like I said earlier, I would want more, but I'm happy with where we're at, and we'd be in a bad spot if I didn't want more.
I think you've got a lot of time too, Rickie. You're 32 years of age. I know you're getting ready to have your family's going to grow, so there's going to be more priorities and different things that are distractions. But you are young, you are healthy, you've got plenty going forward. And what would you say to your critics that say it hasn't been enough so far? Because I think it has been incredible, and I know it's going to get even better. But what would you say to a critic that might say that?
I mean, kind of go back into, yeah, all the things are tough. I've lived out kind of where I dreamed of being as a kid, being on tour, winning on tour. Never necessarily said how many times or anything like that. I've been able to live an incredible life. Golf's given me plenty of opportunities. I'm in a very good position right now, and with the little one on the way, no complaints. Like I said, yeah, would I want more? Definitely. But you wouldn't be doing things the right way if you didn't want more.
So I feel like your game's on an uptick right now. Would you say it's headed back in a great direction? I mean, just 3 weeks ago, maybe about last month sometime, you played in the CJ Cup and you were leading after 54 holes and ended up finishing tied for third. That has to be a huge positive right now.
Yeah, it was great. Came off of a 6-week break, got a lot of really good work in the gym, on the course. So I felt great going in. Missed a cut at Shriners the week before, but I knew where I was at and kind of what I needed to do and tighten things up going into the CJ Cup week. Looking back, CJ Cup might have been arguably the best I've hit it for 4 days in my career. I could have hit it a little better Sunday, but ultimately I didn't putt anywhere near where I should or what I'm capable of. But that was a big step in the right direction. I had, a handful of events that I'd played well over the last couple of years, but it's been a tough 2 years. So to have that performance was a huge step in the right direction, and more time off coming up, which will be a good thing to kind of continue to grind, work on the fields, get ready for the West Coast when we start back in the new year.
Yeah, so you've got about basically a 10-week period here where you're not going to be playing competitive events. What will your 22 schedule look like? Are you going to play the normal 22 or 3 events?
Yeah, somewhere in there. I think the biggest thing for me right now is focusing on getting back in the top 50 in the world. That kind of, for people outside of professional golf, top 50 in the world opens the doors. You're in all the majors and all the other invitationals and events. So you get to set your schedule with that. When you're outside, there's a few events that you won't get in and have to kind of work your way into a couple. So get back in the top 50, things will be a lot easier to schedule and plan out. But I'll play a decent amount on the West Coast to start the year. So that'll be the first I guess month and a half or 2 months traveling with a little one. And then after that, we'll come back and play a bit in Florida. So that'll be a little easier for Allison being at home.
So Allison is you and the baby and Allison will be on the road together?
Yep. So I think we'll leave around January 13th or so. Her brother him and his wife got married during quarantine, just a courthouse wedding. So we're going to go out. They're doing a proper wedding ceremony the weekend before the American Express out in Palm Springs. So that'll be the start to our West Coast tour with the little one.
Well, good. We'll definitely be watching. I'm excited about your upcoming year. I know it's going to be a great one. Before we finish, I want to ask you one question, because I ask this question pretty much of every single PGA Tour player that's on this podcast. And that is, if you had one piece of advice, or maybe two, but one piece of advice for a 14-year-old who wants to play college golf and then play the PGA Tour, what's the best advice for that young boy that has that as a dream?
I think one of the biggest things, I think something I did well even prior to when I was 14, but was never overstepping, which playing and winning and competing against the people you should be and then moving on when you're ready. So playing locally, play well and win locally, and then don't move to, the next section or region until, you're beating the ones around you. And then same thing for, sectional or regional. Once you're having success there and winning, then you can move on to, bigger stuff. I think sometimes you see kids that are kind of thrown into, small fish into too big of a pond and not ready for, the big stage or that next step. So don't make the next step until you're ready is probably the biggest thing.
That's really good. Learn how to win, learn how to be great at one level before you move on. Well, Rickie, I appreciate today. I really do. It's special for me just because, you and I don't get to see each other much anymore. We text occasionally, but don't see each other a lot. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. This is great.
Yeah, you got it. It was fun.